For many Lebanese people, the sudden eruption of sectarian clashes in the capital on 14 October 2021 rang strident alarm bells. Political tensions were very high. The economy was collapsing. Electricity and fuel were almost non-existent. Prices were soaring, and now gunmen were battling it out in the streets again. Was the country teetering on the brink of another civil war? Sectarian fault line. One of many reasons why clashes had some resonance was the location. The Christian suburb of Al-Remmaneh on the southeast edge of Beirut was where the civil war began in April 1975, after a series of incidents culminated in the shooting up by Christian militias of a busload of Palestinians, killing more than 20 Syrian soldiers pictured in West Beirut during the Lebanese civil war. For the next 15 years, Al-Remmaneh was on the front line of the mutating civil war, confronting the adjacent, largely Shia Muslim suburb of Shia. It was from Shia that a band of Shia protesters triggered the clashes on the 14th October by ramping into Al-Remmaneh, chanting provocative sectarian slogans, Shia, Shia, Shia. All 7 of those killed in the ensuing gunfire were Shia, including some from Iranian-backed Hezbollah movement and the allied Amal faction. The incident triggered a virulent exchange of accusations and denial between the Hezbollah-led Shia alliance and the Christian Lebanese Forces (LF) party. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah accused the LF of sending snipers to fire from rooftops in an attempt to kindle a civil war, into which he said Hezbollah would not be drawn. He warned that he could command 100,000 fighters, with the implication that he could trounce his opponents if he had to. The LF leader, Sami Giargia, retorted that his party did not have a militia and was not seeking war. He accused the Hezbollah of trying to cover up involvement in the massive explosion at Beirut port in August 2020 by pushing for the dismissal of the investigating judge, the issue that prompted the Shia demonstration. Foreign forces. Back in 1975, few observers predicted that a full-scale civil war was about to erupt, and once it did, few imagined that it would go on in different forms for 15 years, hitting fault lines which are clearly still there today. So protestation of innocent intentions and even objective assessments of balances of power do not necessarily mean it might not happen again. When political deadlock is intense, miscalculations can be made. Once blood is shed, conflict can take on a life of its own, especially in a situation of sectarian animosity. Political confrontation and polarization are already there during the Al-Remmaneh clashes. Sunnis in nearby areas and Christians in the east Beirut Ashrafi district were on alert, fearing another 7th of May, the day in 2018 when Hezbollah fighters invaded West Beirut to crush Sunni and Druze opponents. If the clashes had involved Sunnis rather than Christians, trouble would have erupted all over the country within an hour, said a well-placed Sunni military source, indicating that Sunnis are nursing a virulent grudge against Hezbollah. People have had it up to their neck, and a clash with Hezbollah would have been the last straw. There was a geopolitical engine driving the conflict in 1975, and there is another one now. Then the right-wing Christian faction, which later metamorphosed into the LF, were set on destroying the power of the Palestine Liberation Organization (PLO) and the states within a state it had established. They were unable to do so on their own, so they drew in first Syria in 1976, and then Israel to help, culminating in the 1982 Israeli invasion, which drove out Yasser Arafat and the PLO. Now the LF are facing another state within the states, this time run by Hezbollah. It was the only faction allowed to retain arms after the Taif peace agreement in 1989, which brought a half of the civil war, a halt of the civil war. Because of its role as defender of Lebanon against Israel. Since then, it has built up formidable and secretive military capability, reckoned to be stronger than the Lebanese army, as well as big network of social services, hospitals and other structures. The difference with the PLO is that Hezbollah is Lebanese, but its affiliation with Iran. It is widely seen as an Iranian proxy, laying a strong geopolitical dimension to any political conflict. While Hezbollah is deeply engaged with Iran, there is widely held belief that the LF leader Sami Ghaggia is receiving substantial funding from Iran's regional rival, Saudi Arabia.
Today I'm announcing nearly $100 million in new humanitarian assistance. That's on top of the $560 million in humanitarian aid that the United States has provided to Lebanon over the last 2 years. And I urge my fellow leaders in capitals around the world to also step up their support for the Lebanese people.